Welcome to online class of KPB School and College, Dhaka. This is MD Mahmudul Hasan Talukder, Assistant Teacher English, KPB School and College. Dear students, viewers and listeners, how are you? I expect all of you are safe and sound. I am also very fine by the grace of Almighty Allah. In my previous lesson, I discussed about simple to complex sentence. Today I am going to teach you about changing sentence from complex to compound. Let us enjoy the class. Topic: complex to compound. Rule 1. The complex sentences which start with since as when. In case of those sentences, the structure of the compound sentence is as follows. Structure: subject plus verb plus extension plus and plus second clause. Dear students, you should remember that the sentences will start with since or as or when. To make it a compound sentence, you should remove since, as, when. Then you should write the subject, verb and adverb, and you should change comma instead of you should use and instead of comma. Then the second clause remain unchangeable. Let us see some examples. Complex: since he is poor, he cannot buy a new dress. Here we can see since at the beginning of the complex sentence. So to make the sentence a compound one, you should remove since from the complex sentence, and the first clause, he is poor, and you should use and instead of comma, and the second clause remain unchangeable. Compound sentence will be he is poor and he cannot buy a new dress. Let us see another example. Complex: as the water was salty, we could not drink it. Here we can see that at the beginning of the complex sentence as, so you should remove as from complex sentence. Then you should write the first clause and you should use and instead of comma. As the water was salty, we could not drink it. The water was salty and we could not drink it. Dear students, let us see another rule. Rule 2. The sentences which start with do or although. In case of those sentences, the structure of the compound sentence would be first clause plus but plus second clause. If any sentence start with do or although, you should remove do or although from the complex sentence. Then you should write down the first clause and you should use but instead of comma, and the second clause remains unchangeable. Let us see some examples. Complex: though he is poor, he leads a decent life. Here we can see at the beginning of the complex sentence though, so you should remove though from the complex sentence to make it a compound sentence. Compound: he is poor but he leads a decent life. Here you should remember two things. One is you should remove though or although, and another is you should use but instead of comma. Let us see another example. Complex: though she was rich, she led an unhappy life. Here we can also see though at the beginning of complex sentence. So to make it a compound one, we should remove though from complex sentence. Then you should change comma. So the compound sentence will be she was rich, and you should use but instead of comma. She was rich but she led an unhappy life. Dear students, move on to the next rule. Rule 3. Very important rule. So that. Instead of so, you should use very, and instead of that, you should use and. Let us see some examples. Complex. The problem was so difficult that we could not solve it. Compound sentence will be the problem was very difficult and we could not solve it. Here you should use very instead of so, and you should use and instead of that. The problem was so difficult that we could not solve it. The problem was very difficult and we could not solve it. Let's see another example. Complex. The man is so old that he cannot walk. Here you can see so and also that, so you should change so that. Compound sentence will be the man is very old and he cannot walk. Here there is two sentences. One is you should use very instead of so, and another is you should use and instead of that. Okay, dear students, move on to the next rule. Rule 4. In exchange of so that, you must use and so to make the sentence compound one. Let's see some examples. Complex. The student reads more so that he can obtain good figures in the examination. Compound sentence will be the student wants to get good figures and so he reads more. Here you should use and so instead of so that. Let's see another example. Complex. He worked hard so that he could earn more. Here you can also see so that. So instead of so that, we should use and so. Compound sentence will be he wanted to earn more and so he worked hard. Rule 5. Very very important rule. The sentences which start with if you do not. In case of those sentences, the structure of the compound sentence would be like this. Structure: verb plus or plus second clause. Dear students, if you find any sentence start with if you do not, you should remove if you do not from the complex sentence. Then you should write down the verb. Then you should use or instead of comma, and the second clause remain unchangeable. Let's see some examples. Complex. If you do not take vaccine, coronavirus will attack you. Here we can see if you do not at the beginning of the complex sentence. So if you do not should be removed from complex sentence, and you should write take vaccine or coronavirus will attack you, and you should remember that you should use or instead of comma. If you do not take vaccine, coronavirus will attack you. Compound: take vaccine or coronavirus will attack you. Let's see another example. Complex. If you do not study hard, you will fail in the exam. We can see at the beginning of the complex sentence if you do not, so you should remove if you do not from complex sentence to make it a compound one, and you should write down study hard or you will fail in the exam. Okay, dear students, let's see another rule. Rule 6. Instead of that, you should use and. One or two examples will make it clear. Complex. We know that he is ill-tempered. Here ill-tempered means bad-tempered. Compound: he is ill-tempered and we know it. Here you should use and instead of that. Another example. Complex. I am sure that he will succeed, and you should remember that he will succeed. This clause you should write this clause first and then you should write the first clause. That means second clause will come to the first clause in the place of first clause, and you should write the first clause after the second clause. Complex, I am sure that he will succeed. Here I am sure that, I am sure first clause, and he will succeed in the second clause. So to make it compound sentence, you should write the second clause first. He will succeed and I am sure of it. And you should use and instead of that. Okay, dear students, move on to the next rule. Rule 7. We can use and in exchange of which. Complex, I saw a bird which was flying. Compound sentence will be I saw a bird and it was flying. Here you should remember one sense, and that is you should write down and instead of which. I saw a bird which was flying. Compound, I saw a bird and it was flying. Rule 8. The sentence which starts with if. In case of that sentence, the structure of the compound sentence is as follows. Structure: verb plus, adverb plus, and plus second clause. An example will make it clear. Complex: if you run fast, you can get the first prize. Here the sentence starts with if, so you should remove if you from the complex sentence to make the sentence a compound sentence. The compound sentence will be run fast and you can get the first prize. Complex was if you run fast, you can get the first prize. You should remember to remove if you from the complex sentence, and you should write down run fast and you should use and instead of comma. Compound, run fast and you can get the first prize. Okay, dear students, that's enough for today. COVID-19 situation is becoming worse day by day. So stay at home, use hand sanitizer or wash your hands frequently for 20 seconds. Don't be upset. Allah will save us. Goodbye.